All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on our first episode ever of this podcast we're putting together here. Where it's going to be 911ish is the name of it. We're basically a show about public safety with public safety personnel, talking about all things public safety from a dispatcher's and call taker's perspective. My name's Jeff Williams. I'm going to be one of the hosts of the show with my partner here in Jason Bradford. Go ahead and say hi there, Jason.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
And welcome, everybody. We're also going to have guests here. This first podcast, though, obviously, it's just going to be us to, kind of see how things go. Before we get started here, I wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to a couple people. One is Chris Germain from CrossFit 310 in Redondo Beach. He is hosting us today and letting us use his facility and his equipment until we can get this thing up and running. So I just want to give a big shout out to him and a big thanks. And, if anybody's feeling like they want to come try CrossFit out or anything like that, it's a great coaching, great facility, great people, and a really amazing community here. And that's CrossFit 310 in Redondo Beach. I also wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to Keith Garcia. He's a sound engineer that works with a bunch of TV companies, and his company is Bald Sound. And he is also letting us use some of his equipment here today as well, along with Chris. So big thanks to CrossFit 310 and Bald Sound. And without further delay, we'll get into it.
50-40, requesting assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress in the Bank of America. Bank of America, located in north of Kittredge. We have shots fired.
All units, officer needs help. At the Bank of America, located north of Kittredge, officer needs help. Bank of America, 911 emergency.
I'm at a drive-thru right now. I ordered my food 3 times. I asked 4 different times to
I got a man in the pool. He's got his driver stuck in the pump line. What? You're kidding me. I'm telling you, honest to God, something you really got to say to believe.
All right, guys, welcome back. And here we go. Basically, we're going to talk a little bit about how we wanted to get this show started originally. So we both work for a Joint Powers Authority in the South Bay area of Southern California. And we were kind of just sitting around BSing one day at work, and we decided to, we were telling some war stories, and one of the people at work, I think it was Cindy, but I'm not sure, she basically said, hey, you guys should just start a podcast. And I was just like, I've always wanted to do that, but I don't know who to do it with. And then the guy sitting next to me started saying, he's like, oh, yeah, that'd be fun. So this is kind of a few months worth of digging around and figuring out how it would work and what we're going to do. And
basically, it's us turning some fun conversation into a show that we thought others might enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of laughs at work and talk about it at work, so we figured why not try and give that out to the rest of the community and the world out there. So we're going to talk a little bit first about our backgrounds, kind of, what qualifies us to speak, I don't know, knowledgeably, I guess would be the right word. I hope that's the right word.
With some sort of credit, maybe?
So, Jason, why don't you give us a little bit about your background? How'd you get into this whole public safety realm?
Okay. Well, first started in 1994. I became a reserve officer with a local agency. Had a splendid time. Did that for about 7 years. And that agency was kind enough to hire me on as a CSO. And that's a community service officer, where I did things around the station to help out and learn about how things work. And from there,
Did you say 1994 or 84?
I did say 1994.
Okay, good, because
47 years old,
damn.
which puts me a couple of years older than you.
Well, I was 9 when you were a cop.
Awesome. Thanks for
So,
pointing
well,
that
you know.
out. That made me feel good. This is off to the right start. I can see this is going to be a working relationship that lasts a long, long time, my friend.
Well, you got to have that banter back and forth, right? Just like you do at work.
Exactly. And that's why now we think all of the public should hear what we do.
Exactly. So you were a CSO, got to work in the field a little bit, and then what happened?
From there, I got hired in the dispatch center. Loved it. I was very privileged to have the agency I was working for take me on the dispatch center.
Did you want to go into dispatch, or was
I
it
did.
kind of those?
I did. From being around the station, I thought it was a cool job. You were part of the team. I loved how it was not the same thing day in and day out. It was challenging as far as what situations you were going to be faced. And I liked it. At the end of the day, your day was done.
Yes, no paperwork.
Right.
No paperwork.
Right.
Greatest
I was
thing.
like, yeah.
Greatest thing.
Come in here, do my shift, have a great time, get to
That's
work
right.
with awesome people, and at the end of the day,
Yep.
peace, I'm out.
That's right.
I don't want to think about court papers tomorrow. No. I didn't
So-
supervisor approval on a report. None of that stuff sounds
Yep.
thrilling to me at all.
Yep. So how many years total you been in dispatch now?
I went to dispatch 99, so 21 years. Dispatch got hired on in 97, so...
You're literally going to be having dispatched for a longer time than some of our guests will be alive. I'm to the point where I could be fathers of a couple of these dispatchers that we're going to have on, and that's a scary thought in and of itself.
That's true.
So,
and I'm glad you're doing the math that fast in your head.
Well, I'm good at some things. As long as it's basic adding and subtraction, I'm okay.
That's true.
No multiplications. Don't even try to get me started on division, because my teachers always lied to me. This is a little bit of a side note. Huh? They always told me when I was doing math, like, oh, you're never going to have a calculator with you all the time. Like, horse shit. I have a cell phone now and an Apple Watch. My Apple Watch even figures out my tip for me. I don't even got to think.
Yeah.
That's what makes it great.
Oh, Apple Watch, can you tell me what 20% is?
Yes, it can. It can. So 28%, man, you're a big tipper.
20.
Oh, I thought you said 2.8. I was like,
see, yeah, obviously you're not good at numbers.
Yeah, well, it's not
so. All right, well, that's enough about me. What about you, big guy? How'd you get started?
So I am born into a policing family. My father's a retired lieutenant down here. And when I was 14, I started volunteering for Torrance PD. And I volunteered at for their driver's training and a few other, the Armed Forces Day Parade and a couple of other events that they put on every year. And then when I was 18, I graduated high school when I was 17, but
look at you, overachiever.
I know.
Without being able to do math.
3 days after I graduated high school, I moved down here, and I started my job on my 18th birthday with Torrance PD. And I was a cadet there for a couple years, and then I was playing football and went to school at El Camino College, and I went over there as a parking enforcement officer, and I did that for, I don't know, probably like 8 or 9 months, and that's kind of like their version of a CSO. I mean, they have a CSO above that. They supervise the parking enforcement officers, but after that.
Did you like parking?
It was different. So when I was at Torrance, about 80 to 90% of what I did was inside. Like I was in traffic and I input citations in the computer system. I was in records, doing records management and learning.
So you
about
weren't
the
like traffic
things.
control, collisions, and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
When I went to El Camino,
because I can't imagine a lot of people getting upset at you writing them a parking ticket.
No. So for all of you who don't know me, I'm not on the small scale of things. I'm like 6'5", about 370 pounds. And
you're not good at math.
No,
370's got to be the low range.
Well, that was a few months ago before COVID hit. I'm not going to lie. I haven't weighed myself since.
Right.
So, and I'm a dispatcher. I sit in a chair for a living now. So, but I played football for a few years anyways. So I was parking enforcement. I enjoyed parking enforcement because it was different. I got to be out and about, talk to people, see things, do stuff like that. And a friend of mine, by the name of Josh, told me to come sit in dispatch one day, and I was just like, all right, I had no idea what I was doing or what dispatch was.
Was this at Torrance as well?
No, this was at El Camino.
Okay.
And so I sat down and was like, what am I doing? And he started to teach me as a part-time dispatcher there, and I'll never forget one of his training methods was I was a horrible typist, and I used to do the hunt and peck with the fingers.
Still do, big guy.
So he took a ruler out, and every time he saw me hunting and pecking, he would slap the back of my hands with a ruler really hard.
Wow,
until
it's
I got
like
it right.
Catholic school.
Yeah, except on the hands.
Gotcha.
So that was fun, and I'll never forget he used to make me run like 100 plates at a time because they had security cameras you can control. And he would just pick a line of cars and just go down the line of cars.
Are these students?
They're faculty and students.
Gotcha.
And he just wouldn't stop. He would just start reading plates, and then would just keep reading and keep reading and keep. I'd have a message queue of like 70 messages waiting to go through and all that stuff.
And this is how you learn to become a fast taper, because you're like
taper. Yes.
Typer.
Yes.
And
actually,
you're like over
no.
70 words now, aren't you?
I am now, but I wasn't. So when I basically after a couple years at El Camino, Josh was just like you need to do something other than just dispatch at El Camino, because he could see at a time that I couldn't see it, that it was kind of like my forte. Mm-hmm. So he put me in touch with a girl named Bonnie, who's no longer the manager of where I work now, and she told me to come apply, and I applied 13 years ago now at RCC. And when I started there, I was still a hunter and pecker. Like I could barely get by like maybe 36 words a minute at the time. And my training officer, who was an OG, basically was like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. And would put in my evaluations like, you can't type, you misspelled the word the, you're too stressed out.
Take your class with
you. My name is not spelled that way. You forgot the E at the end and stuff like that. Yeah. So she basically told me this was back in the day, right? Back when you could have homework still.
Yes.
And she said, go home and watch your favorite TV show and type your one of character's lines for the entire show.
That's not bad advice, actually.
Yeah. So I went home and I forgot what show I watched. It wasn't The Office, but it was some comedy. Okay. And I literally just typed every single thing that one of the characters said, and that's how I learned how to type.
Yeah. And according to you, if it was me, it would have been new episodes of the Andy Griffith Show.
Yes. Or Happy Days. Both are good.
How do you spell?
Well, that's true. How do you spell Fonz? Ooh.
I'm going to go Frank Ocean Nor Zebra.
There you go. I think that is correct. So anyways, after 13 years of dispatching at the same place, here we are, and that's kind of how I got into it. I
like how a good 10 minutes on that was about typing.
Yeah, I do have to admit, though, that I think I never thought I would be a dispatcher growing up. I always was like, oh, I'm going to be a cop, I'm going to be a cop.
No, I mean, who grows up saying, I'm going to work in dispatch?
Yeah. But
however, society today, I think, is changing that a little bit. Have you noticed the amount of 911 shows that are getting created now?
Yes. Have you watched the new one that just came out on NBC or ABC or whatever?
Gotta admit, didn't think I'd want to watch work at home.
Yeah, and now look at this. We're talking about work at home. I will admit that I found it funny. One of the girls at work was saying, she watched it the other day, and she was like, one of the girls on the 911 show from Houston or Fort Worth, Dallas or whatever, was just like, there could be times when I take 100 calls for service in a whole shift.
Wow.
And we all started laughing. We're like, wow, well, we do that by like noon, so good for you.
And I wonder, compared to 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts?
Yeah,
because there's days we can crank that out in the first 4 hours, pal.
Yeah, and those are terrible, terrible days.
No,
didn't
like them.
So? Yeah, oh yes, I
did
agree.
not like them.
Yeah,
don't want to remember them.
It's very busy sometimes. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got into it, and I have to admit that it's kind of never thought I'd do it, but it's a niche thing, and I don't want to sound cocky, but I think I'm pretty good at it, and that's kind of how I stay into it. So,
well, since you're pretty good at it, let me pose a question to you.
Mm-hmm.
What part of the job do you find the most difficult?
Today, I think one of this sounds really bad, but I think one of the most difficult things in today's job is staying engaged and being empathetic towards everybody that calls, because there's just so many calls, and I think the official term for it's the 300 call syndrome or something like that, where it's just you're so used to taking the same thing. It's like, oh, so it's another domestic violence, it's another domestic violence, it's another illegal parker, another loud party, another something, and it's the lines of questioning never change. It's always the same, right? So it's
in fact, they're scripted.
Yeah. So it to the after 10 years, you're just like, okay, here we go, another domestic violence. Let's do this. And I think that's the most difficult part, is making sure that, for me at least, every single time you still stay engaged and you still stay empathetic and you still make sure that you're helping the person on the other end of the phone, because they don't know that I've been sitting there for 10 hours answering other people's complaints all day. It's just their problem.
And now they do.
Yeah. Now they do. Yeah. So, but I think that's one of the most difficult parts is staying that way. So, what do you find difficult after all these years?
You know what? I think the most difficult part is the same level of service for every call. Kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
But because you still get those calls that maybe they're not the highest priority, but you can tell it's somebody that genuinely needs your help, and you're putting 110% into that. It's hard to do that for every call.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it does make it a little difficult sometimes. So
not to say that we don't care.
Yeah, it's we do this because we care. It's just you answer so many of them, it just becomes mundane after a certain point in time. So, and I think that's also we're talking about what's most difficult. I think that's also one of the easier aspects of the job now, after so many years, is it's very, very rarely stressful and new. You still get new stuff. Like, there's at least one time a week where I'm like, oh, haven't dealt with that before. Right. I haven't heard that before. But, you're talking about one time a week. Might sound like a lot, but during that 1 week, I'm taking, 200 calls.
It does take a special set of circumstances to get you somewhat re-engaged.
Yes.
To the level as when you were new.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think one of the most everyday things that we find that's more entertaining is we send around and kind of chuckle at people's names these days, and like, wow.
That is fun.
How many letters, I think you hit every single letter there. Yeah. I don't think you missed out on that one.
I think I've seen a driver's license legally listed as Santa Claus.
Yeah. There used to be a guy that called in all the time where his name was on his caller ID was Sasquatch. So.
Gardena.
I think that's where he lives, but I'm not sure. So, yeah, but I always find that one entertaining. I was like, Sasquatch. It's applicable to me, I would have gone Yeti, but,
I think, I think there's a lady driving around Hawthorne, Rocket Minjizzle.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times too.
Yeah.
There's some interesting ones.
She's a YouTuber.
And we remember these things.
Yeah, she's a YouTuber.
So, and those are some of the things too where you see them and they kind of like make you chuckle a little bit and they throw you off your game a little bit. So let me move into this one then, difficult, easy. If you had to pick one thing, like, what part of this job kind of throws you off balance the most when you're doing it?
I think there's still unique reasons that people find to call the police department that are totally not police related.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what throws me off the most. I can't, to the level that we receive calls a good portion of the time that are not law enforcement related.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That we need to entertain, that I almost find myself, I always want to help, but I'm just, I can think of better avenues to take
than calling
the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that still throws me off.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's, I think, I don't want to say I don't want to say that the public is uneducated on the idea of civic versus criminal, civil versus criminal, but I mean, maybe partly so, but I think in the moment when they're dealing with that issue, the first thing that comes to mind is call the police. Because usually when that moment comes along, they're at Burger King, or they're at the mechanic, or they're at somewhere where they're not getting what they want, and they kind of get into this little argument, and they call expecting the police to solve their problems. And you're like, listen, this isn't a police issue.
Right. The officers that we get to work with, that we have the privilege of working with, the firefighters that we have the privilege of working with and being a part of their team on a day in and day out basis, they are great at going out there and rectifying situations that they don't need to be there for.
Oh, yeah,
and I think that spills over into more calls for us because, hey, these guys are awesome.
Yeah.
They do everything. I think I'll call them for this. I've got a clogged toilet.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize maybe not realize, but we could, in dispatch, handle and solve a lot of those problems.
Yes. If granted the authority, if you will, we could dispo a lot of calls over the phone.
Yeah. At the same time, we don't always understand what's going on out in the field, and you know as well as I do that every story changes once an actual badge shows up at your door.
Very true.
I always tell people in training, there's three versions of the truth. There's what happened in your opinion, what happened in person B's opinion, and then what actually happened. And they very, very, very rarely are all the same.
You've had this. So. I saw the gun. It was big as a bazooka. Officer gets there. I never said I saw a gun.
Yeah, yeah. Or you're like, you're on a recorded line. Are you sure you saw somebody shoot the gun at somebody else?
Oh,
Absolutely, I did. There's no 245 South Bay. Good to know. Thank you. So, those are the things that if I always still just find interesting and stuff like that. And I still find myself mentally preparing when I sit there and it's slow for the big incidents that are going to go sideways. I think that's something that was instilled in me from training at the very beginning, was be prepared for things go sideways at the calm moments, because that's when they always do. So I think that's one thing that is going to help a lot of the newer generation when they come in, and I try to tell my trainees that all the time, is like, hey, when you're sitting there at 2:30 in the morning and, all you're hearing is crickets and watching TV, I always I'd like to tell them, hey, if a unit came on the air right now and just said, hey, I'm taking rounds, what are you going to do?
Right.
And, that mental preparedness, I think, always helps.
I think when you get to the level that, I don't want to pat myself on the shoulder, but that you and I have reached, if you will, in our career, that we've kind of got a thought, and we're always playing out scenarios in my head. I still do.
Oh, yeah, I do.
When I'm sitting there, if this unit starts saying this, what am I going to do if this unit starts saying that? But we're doing it in our heads. We're still having a good time in dispatch. And I think newer people don't understand still the level of readiness that we have should it go sideways.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most important things that I was taught from my original trainer that I still do to this day is A, I thank God that she taught me, because I couldn't type it, now I can, but B, the mental preparedness of, this next phone call I answer is literally going to be either a parking call or somebody who just got shot in the face, and it's, which one are you going to deal with and how are you going to deal with it? So
when I went to the radio, I had a great trainer.
Oh, radio.
And
good movie.
And another old term.
Yeah, that is true too. Another old term. Yeah.
However, the best advice I got was constantly play the what ifs.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Constantly play the what ifs in your head.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And one of those days it's going to hit.
Yeah. And I remember one time very, very, very clearly. I was sitting the Hawthorne console, and it was like, I want to say it was like 2:30 at night, and or in the morning, and all of a sudden nothing was going on. They had just cleared a party call, and my K9 came on the radio and literally just started screaming he was taking rounds, and couldn't even understand what intersection he was at, and it was 0 to 1,000, like just go, and it took me a minute, and after I soiled myself, I came together and.
You soiled yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was definitely one of those fake it till you make it moments. I was scared.
Total honesty show now.
Hey, I was scared, and luckily he didn't get shot or anything like that. But basically, long story short is, basically he was driving down the street where other officers just cleared a party call, and the neighbor didn't like the way they dispoed it, and neighbor came out of the house and decided to throw some rounds up into the air to scare everybody at the party away, not knowing there was a police officer driving down the street. Shot a couple rounds off, saw a police officer, and said, F it, let's shoot him too. And just decided to shoot and dumped into the PD unit a few rounds. And, just
hit
decided
the actual
to.
police car.
Yeah, he hit the police car.
Wow.
Didn't hit the officer or his canine. And this was all after that. We didn't know where the shooting had come from originally. But I guess how he, quote-unquote, got away for that night during the perimeter is he just ran back inside his house. And we didn't see what house he came out of or went into,
Right.
so we couldn't go in. But, yeah, so that was one of those perfect moments of the mental preparedness really kind of paid off because I was able to keep going at the one of the more stressful parts of my day. So, but those are always the calls too that make life fun. It's always fun when you're sitting there dispatching the radio to sit there and ooh, the emergent 245 or the 417 just popped up and let's roll. So. So you have one call that from me. So you got to give us at least one memorable call that you had in your career that kind of propelled you in this love of dispatch.
The one that always sticks out to me the most. I was at my first agency, and it was a graveyard shift of 5 o'clock in the morning.
Always on a graveyard, man.
It is.
It's always
it
on
is.
a graveyard.
It's when you think everybody's sleeping, turns out they're not.
Yeah. Summer.
November.
Ooh. Fall. So it wasn't. I mean, it's Southern California, so it's never cold.
In fact, I gave November 2000.
Okay.
5 o'clock in the morning. 911 rings out of the blue after phones have been silent. One call.
Works.
It's a security guard in the parking lot of a Target who was sleeping in his car. Says, hey, look, I was sleeping in my car. One of the employees just ran out, said they're getting robbed in there, and she kept on running, and I'm running now too.
It's a great security guard right there.
Right. Oh, yeah. He was like, they're getting robbed. All right, let's get out of here. I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Is literally what he said. So that being
I'm
said,
guessing that these weren't armed security guards here. They were probably
he
one of
was
those.
sleeping in his car.
Yeah, they were kind of the security guards that get paid to be a good witness, but he
Yeah.
was a bad witness.
No, if he was to promote, he'd like work TSA or something like that.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's harsh.
So that said, we start sending units down there.
Mhm.
My first unit gets on scene, looks through the window. I've got 3 gunmen and 40 employees on the floor.
Okay. Things just got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things just went sideways and
Yeah.
got a little fun.
The thought of it just got real
Yeah.
went through my head.
Yeah. Especially because this is
game
only.
on.
This was 2000.
2000.
So this was 3 years after the North Hollywood shootout. So that's still pretty
Yeah.
fresh in everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So needless to say, we start sending the world,
Mm-hmm.
calling for help. Sheriff's Department, SWAT team, area units, the whole big deal.
Yeah.
That was a 21-hour shift, big guy.
Oof. That's a long shift.
Yeah, it is.
Longest I've done 17 hours, I think, and it was because I got held over for 1 hour. I was working at 16, and I got held over for an hour. Yeah, that's 21 hours is a long time. So what happened? They get out?
So 3 suspects. No, nobody got out. Well,
I hope 40 of at least some of those hostages got out.
So what it was they agreed to let out 10 at a time,
Yeah.
and the first guy thought he'd be the 10th one.
The suspect?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
So suspect number 1 tries to come out in the first group of 10 with 9 people pointing at him going, that's him.
Yeah. That's.
Taken into
Was
custody.
he still armed? Or did
No.
he leave his gun inside?
No, he left his gun inside. He was smart enough to do that. Came out, put on the Target red shirt and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And the other 2 eventually came out the same way. Tried to come out with groups of hostages, not knowing it didn't work for the first one.
Wow. Well, nobody ever said criminals were smart.
No.
So that always makes it entertaining, You
It
gotta
is.
you gotta love it when people are like,
It
"Oh no,
was
I got
fun.
the system beat here."
Yeah.
So,
But
just like Pursuits. What's the point here, people? You cannot run a radio.
that was the part of the job that was fun. That whole team aspect,
Mhm.
the coordinated effort among all the people who were there, that makes it fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know.
I'm a part of this awesome team. Let's make this
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So I remember I had that, but there's always those are the fun calls where adrenaline gets going and everybody has a good time and stuff like that. But then there's also fun calls where when it happens it isn't fun, and in hindsight, after you've been made fun of for 10 years, it's when you kind of can laugh at yourself fun. So and we've all had those too, but I think I take the cake on that one. I remember Oh man, I don't even remember what year it was. I was working and I took a call. This was right after, I don't remember, Aaron Rodgers, not Aaron Rodgers. He's
The quarterback
you're a
for the Green Bay
football.
Packers?
No, it's not that guy. You're a football guy. Who was the guy? He was a football player. He ended up killing himself in jail after he beat the crap out of his girlfriend or his wife or something like that.
OJ's still alive?
No, he is still alive, but it's
Then it wasn't him.
I forgot, it was on TMZ and all that stuff, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was an NFL player. He was in Hermosa Beach, and he had just called, and one of our people had just been put on TMZ for it.
God, I can't recall this.
Yeah, and this wasn't that call, but that had just happened. And one of our girls had just put on the news, so it was a big reminder of everything that you say on the radio or the phone, can eventually be put on the news and blah 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 blah.
Right.
So this was like maybe a couple months after that. So I remember taking a call.
Aaron Hernandez.
That's it.
There you go.
And I remember taking a call, and from my perspective and what I remember, this girl kept screaming that her baby was caught in the wall, stuck in the wall or stuck under the house.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, here we go. And I'll admit, that the tunnel vision came
stuck
in.
in a wall, and your thought was, here we go.
Well, no, I was thinking, oh, crap, this is going to get me on the news, so I need to make sure I do this perfect.
Okay, that's a better line of
And I remember very, very clearly that she said, and I was like stuck in the wall. And then I was thinking, because a lot of the houses around here are built, I don't know what it's called, but they're built like a foot off the ground, and they have like those false floors underneath where all the pipes and old ductwork from the 50s goes.
Crawl spaces.
Crawl spaces under the house and all that stuff. I don't know what the type of construction is, but anyways. And I was just like, okay, maybe she probably means the kid's stuck under there. So I was like, okay, so for us that's a roof collapse. And I was like, all right, so that's a full response for fire, and the PD department or the police department's going to respond to everybody. So I made it a roof collapse, and I'm on the phone with this girl trying to get further until the fire department gets there, and I just distinctly having this moment of, oh crap, when she said, wow, I hear the sirens. That's a lot of fire engines for my cat.
Cat?
And I was like, ma'am, you said your baby was stuck in the wall. She's like, yeah, my cat's my baby.
Oh,
and
boy.
I was like, oh, shit.
Oh,
and
boy.
yeah. And so...
Hey. No response too small.
No, I think this call was too small. So so I was like, I put it in the right away, and I was like, no, she means a cat, and hoping that, she's going to cancel this response. And
this story totally articulates dispatch tactics. Send everything. It's easier to cancel them.
Well, yeah, that's true up to a point. Because call...
That would have been my mindset when I called in supervisor's office.
Because this call was...
Hey, I didn't know what she meant. I sent the whole world.
So the whole police department for that shift, the whole shift, I should say, responded to this call thinking it was a baby stuck on a crawl space, right? So I remember there's one person out there that loves me, and he will never, or she will never not love me, because they were in the middle of giving FSTs to this person on a traffic stop when this call came out.
Save somebody from a DUI.
And I saved somebody from a DUI. And they I remember talking to the officer after the fact. He's like, oh, no, I just grabbed his keys, said, you're not driving anywhere, walk home, and went to this call for service. And he was like, oh, and he was easily deuce. And I could have had a statin, because he was kind of like upset and then made fun of me and wasn't upset anymore. And... And I was like, I'm so sorry. And I remember I called the battalion chief right away. I was like, I'm so sorry. I know that she said baby and blah, blah, blah.
Hey,
and the battalion chief
saved
was cool.
a cat and a guy from a DUI arrest in one call.
It was one of those moments where it really, really sucked for a lot of years, and I still get made fun of for it all the time. But I can look back on it and laugh now. So I think that's a good thing.
Would you agree with this? Throughout a shift, you are constantly faced with having to make decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
Throughout a shift, there are things that sometimes you got to think about a little harder than others.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place to eat?
Well, that is the most important question of the shift usually, because it affects just so many of us.
Right.
I think it's going to depend on the mood I'm in for the day. Obviously, as you know,
right.
The people at home might not know. I'm a big boy. I'm a bit of a big eater.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick one place to eat on shift.
Favorite place.
Favorite place.
I know you're not going to eat the same thing every day.
It'd probably be Rinaldi's. I
love
sandwiches,
Rinaldi's.
Huh? Oh, yeah. They have this thing called the Fat Boy Sandwich, and it's a meatball sub with andouille sausage, pepperoni, melted cheese.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Oh, yeah. It literally, it's one of those where we say, hey, somebody's having a bad day at work, and it's like, we're doing Rinaldi's, and we're like, oh, yeah, it's Fat Boy time. So
I got to go Chili Verde.
Ooh, good tacos.
I'm going tacos.
Really good tacos. The problem with them, and the problem that every dispatcher, whoever listens to this thing knows, is they get soggy after a while, which means you have to order.
Feel-good food.
They are, but you have to eat it quick. That's the problem with food and dispatches. You have to eat it quick.
I understand what you're saying,
soggy.
and it's a valid point.
Yeah.
But tacos just put a smile on everyone's face.
That is true. That is true. Everybody loves tacos.
Right.
And chili bread tacos. Maybe I'll do that for dinner.
Like, you know what? You ever see somebody in a bad mood say, want to go get some tacos?
Yeah. I mean, they have a whole day.
Frown
Taco
turned
Tuesday.
upside down.
Taco Tuesday, for God's sakes.
That's right.
So
That's why they named the day after it.
That's right. That's right. So I think with that, we're right at about a half hour here. So I think with that question, we are going to call episode number 1 a wrap. And it's been fun talking to you. It's been fun having a conversation.
I had a blast.
You know, if we sound a little nervous, it's our first time. So
I think it went well for a first time.
I think it went pretty well for a first time. So hopefully,
whether or not we'll have repeat listeners is another story.
Well, yeah, you know, they might hate us after this.
Right.
Who knows? So and
I
it's funny
just
because
wasted 30 minutes on this.
yeah, I always tell my trainees all the time, you know, your whole job is to be forgotten. So
That's true.
If you did your job right, they won't remember you. So
That's
hopefully that won't be the case in this circumstance. So on that, I just would like to say thank you to everybody who's out there listening to us. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back again soon. And I just want to give one more final shout out to CrossFit 310. Anybody looking for a CrossFit program in the South Bay or even thinking about getting started or anything like that, you can go to CrossFit310.com or you can look up his phone number on the website. It's a great gym, great coaching, really good community. I've been working out here for years. You'd think I'd be skinnier than I am now, but, you know, maybe I'm just eating too many Rinaldi's sandwiches and tacos. Who knows? The other big shout I want to give is once again to Keith Garcia from Bald Sound for letting us use his amazing high-end audio equipment here. And if you're not doing anything and you enjoy the show, we are going to have on our next episode our first guest. She's actually a coworker of ours. Her name's Alyssa Round, and she is a newer junior dispatcher. She only has a couple of years of service on the job. No prior experience, as far as I recall, in law enforcement, but I'm not 100% sure about that from where she is now. So she'll be able to bring a fresh, different perspective than what we have from our old, salty perspective of dispatch and everything. So it should be fun.
Won't be so grumpy.
Yeah. So with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone listening to us.
And have a good day.